Prayer in schools. Prayer, a practice rooted in various cultures and religions around the world, possesses the inherent potential to transcend divisions and foster unity among people. However, throughout history, prayer in schools has become a contentious issue, generating controversy and conflict instead of promoting a sense of community and mutual support. From its beginnings in colonial educational institutions to contemporary legal debates, the question of prayer in schools has reflected the tensions between religious freedom and the separation of church and state. This document will explore the history of prayer in schools, its level of acceptance among students and teachers, and its scientific impact on students, with the aim of demonstrating that prayer, wherever it is practiced in the world, should unite people instead of separating them and bringing controversy, bringing a sense of community, companionship, and a feeling of support. The history of prayer in schools can vary depending on the country, mainly because of the different religions that are predominant in different parts of the world. In general, the beginning of prayer in schools and the origin or formation of the schools themselves go hand in hand. In colonial times, prayer was an important part of these educational institutions because religious education was a strong pillar in their school programs. This historical context set the stage for later debates and legal challenges in the U.S., particularly concerning the role of religion in public education. Current debates about education in the U.S., such as those concerning school vouchers and the funding of religious organizations, have deep historical roots in the 19th century conflict over religion in public schools. Initially, the public school system began with Protestant religious instruction, which led Catholics to establish their own separate school system. Figures like Bishop John Hughes and Governor William Seward played key roles in these debates, which ultimately led to the prohibition of sectarian religious instruction in public schools. Despite these earlier efforts to address religious tensions, the issue of religion in schools remained a point of contention, eventually leading to landmark Supreme Court cases such as Engel v. Vitale, 1962. In this case, the court ruled that mandatory prayer in public schools was unconstitutional, affirming the principle of separation of church and state. Engel v. Vitale can be seen as a continuation of the earlier debates, reflecting the ongoing struggle to balance religious freedom and the separation of church and state in a diverse society. Regardless of decisions about the relationship between church and state, a strong and accessible public education system is essential for a united and democratic nation, ensuring that all students have the opportunity to learn and succeed. The most recent development regarding this issue is the new law in Texas, SB 1515, which permits voluntary prayer and Bible reading in schools and requires the display of the Ten Commandments in classrooms. The law allows school boards to adopt policies that set aside time for voluntary prayer and Bible reading, and requires school districts to display the Ten Commandments in every classroom, although it does not compel anyone to read them. The acceptance of prayer in schools also goes back to religious orientation and culture, as students bring a family background that can vary from one to another. For example, according to American Heritage in America in 1840, in New York City alone, there were about 200,000 Roman Catholics, a third of the city's population, and they had serious objections to Protestant non-sectarianism. Catholic parents were advised to keep their children out of public schools lest their immortal souls be endangered. And many did, while agonizing over having to watch their children grow up in places like the terrible Five Point slums without any formal education. Already in secondary and higher education, because students tend to have more knowledge of what religions are, and at the same time begin to have more identity, and therefore tend to be more independent, they begin to have their own religious inclinations. The level of acceptance has always been and will be in debate, since each person is different, and for the same reason, they have different opinions and perceptions about the subject. What is certain is that prayer in schools and throughout the world should be a point of unity and not of separation and animosity. On the contrary, it should bring unity and harmony among the groups, where there is companionship and a sense of community, where there is emotional support and direction towards good moral actions. From a scientific perspective, prayer may have positive effects on students, such as reduced stress and anxiety, improved mood, and the promotion of mental and emotional resilience. Neuroscientific research suggests that prayer can activate the frontal lobe and modify brain activity, promoting calmness and concentration. Although some correlational studies suggest that prayer is linked to better mental and physical health, scientific research faces methodological limitations in demonstrating direct causality. This is still a topic of debate, and to have a better perspective of the current reality regarding it, I conducted a survey of 30 university students from various universities in Texas. This survey seeks to explore the opinions and experiences of university students in Texas based on the survey conducted. The students were contacted via telephone and were friends, family, and friends of theirs whom I did not know until that moment. They were able to communicate specifically on their opinions on voluntary prayer in schools, whether they have participated in prayers in schools, and their experiences doing so. The results were as follows. The survey of 30 university students in Texas reveals a diversity of opinions on voluntary prayer in schools. 20%, 6 students, support the idea and would be willing to participate, even if they have not done so before. Half of the respondents, 15 students, consider prayer a positive practice, reporting experiences of peace and stress reduction. 10%, 3 students, show indifference, although they respect the decision of others. Another 10%, 3 students, express rejection of these events. The rest support prayer in schools, but prefer to participate in religious services outside of the school environment. In general, the survey suggests that the majority of students support or do not oppose voluntary prayer in schools, although their reasons and levels of participation vary. It is important to note that a significant number of students have had positive experiences related to prayer in school, which indicates that it could be a valuable resource for those seeking spiritual or emotional support. In conclusion, prayer has the potential to be a unifying force in schools and in society at large. While historical and legal debates about prayer in schools have highlighted the complexities of balancing religious freedom and the separation of church and state, it is essential to remember the inherent potential of prayer to foster unity, fellowship, and emotional support. By promoting an inclusive and respectful environment where students can practice prayer voluntarily and without coercion, schools can cultivate a sense of community and belonging that benefits all students, regardless of their religious beliefs. Ultimately, prayer should be a source of inspiration and connection, driving us to act with kindness, compassion, and empathy towards others.